Marvel Rivals Season 6 comes with a ton of buffs and nerfs, and the meta as a whole is going to change dramatically. That's why in this video, we're going to talk about the best winners in Season 6 from tanks, DPS, and supports, so you know exactly what characters to pick up and main going into Season 6 to give you a good start on learning these characters and succeeding at climbing the ranked ladder. Then we're going to jump straight in, but first, a word from our sponsor. But first, let me introduce you to the sponsor of this video, Wand. Wand is a platform that gives you real control over how you experience single-player PC games without any of the hassle that comes with digging through folders, adjusting hidden settings, or trying to make complicated tools work. You just press Alt plus W in-game to open Wand's overlay and adjust anything instantly. Wand gives you clean, straightforward interface where you can pick a game and immediately shape the experience to your style fit. For example, in Skyrim, I can boost stamina or remove carry weight, and in Elden Ring, I can test new builds instantly without farming runes again. Instead of hunting through forums, watching hour-long tutorials, or hoping you did everything correctly, Wand lets you cut down on repetitive grinding, making things tougher if you want a challenge, or just smooth out the parts that slow you down. You can give yourself a boost when you need one, unlock creative ways to play, and make your games feel exactly like you want them to. It's great for players who don't have a ton of time, anyone who wants more accessible ways to enjoy their favorite titles, or people that just like gaming on their own terms. With support for thousands of games and new features always being added, Wand makes PC games more flexible, more personal, and far less frustrating. Download Wand for free using my link wand.gg/coachmills in the description and play games your way. And once again, thank you Wand for sponsoring this video. Now, the first big winner in Season 6 is actually gonna be Namor. Now, what they notably did here is they weakened his team up with Hela, but they gave him a lot of base buffs to his just default kit, including more squid uptime. It's going to be quicker to charge up another squid. The squids are going to do more damage to enemies. And in general, the Namor loop is gonna feel a lot better, where before it felt like he was lacking in power without the team up, and most importantly, he didn't have a great way to cycle his abilities, and there was oftentimes massive down periods where he felt fairly ineffective, and that's just no longer going to be the case. Namor can be definitely sufficient even in non-synergy compositions without the Hela, and you just get to play him in a lot more flexible scenarios. And the thing about Namor is he's always on the cusp of being viable anyways, because he has a very powerful ultimate that can combo really well with characters like Groot, is really good at shutting down things like a Punisher ultimate, and also combos very well with Rocket ultimate and Luna ultimate damage boost. So overall, I think Namor is going to be in a really great spot where you're going to be able to play this character every single game, get better at him, and just get a lot more practice as opposed to just only playing him in these very specific spots with that synergy. So yeah, Namor is great, and I think you're gonna see a lot more Namor play in general going into Season 6, and he's a character that just has the tools to do something good against basically any matchup, whether it's long distance poke, he got that. He's good at anti-dive, he's reasonable in all ranges, he plays the poke meta well, and he's good against more brawl things as well and dive things as well. So I think he's just in a really sweet spot going into Season 6, and I highly recommend him for those of you who want something that's good in poke but not necessarily a, you know, hit scan DPS. So the next character we got to talk about is actually Hulk, and Hulk in Season 6 is going to be a freaking monster because he gets so much added to his kit. Now he's going to have his clap on a lesser cooldown, and remember in the previous patch notes he got, now that reduces the cooldown of his bubble, so he's going to be able to clap more, reduce his bubbles more, and just generally have much more uptime. He gets to jump faster now, he gets to prime his jump and actually get off a jump easier, and it also charges faster, so the max jump is going to be easier to do as well. And all of this is really great stuff on Hulk, going to give him far less downtime, but his ultimate puts it over the top, where now there is no launch and knockback effects while he's using his ult, so you're not going to be able to just be constantly booped by a Jeff or by an Invis or just random nonsense. You are going to be able to, you know, be the Monster Hulk, be very hard to move. Yes, you can still get hard CC'd, but there are ways for you to outplay that and actually bait that out, as opposed to before when it just felt like you were just constantly at the whims of enemies just booping you around no matter what. And I think it makes this ultimate much stronger, because Hulk ult was always pretty strong, because even if they defensive ult, right, you can typically juggle someone out of that ultimate and get them killed. But the problem is you just oftentimes just get hit by every piece of utility and just die and get juggled around. That's no longer going to be the case. So the combination of higher uptime, which means faster ultimates, and more ultimates that are going to be impactful, really make Hulk very appealing going into Season 6, and I definitely recommend him. Now, the first support we got to talk about in Season 6 is actually Cloak and Dagger, and Cloak and Dagger is getting some pretty important changes. So for one, the bubble now will do a big burst of instant heal when you use it, the heal bubble, and it will heal for 60 anyone inside as it's opened, and then it will heal less healing per second throughout the course of it being around. So less long-term healing, but more upfront healing is actually just stronger of an ability, because being able to bail people out when they're 1 HP is really important, and you're going to be able to find situations where someone is just right about to die and you bring them back to life from the cusp of death, and that is giving you more options. And this means that this ability is better used from behind than it was before, and it's still comparably just as good as it was ever, because you're going to basically only do less healing after like the 6 second has passed, which it's basically fading. So overall, it's a great buff to the character. And the other buff that Cloak and Dagger got is even stronger, where now you can use your blind or your heal, you know, square rectangle ability. That is going to be something that shares a cooldown, so you can double up, and it puts them on a 2-second cooldown. But what you could do is you could double heal wall 2 seconds apart and really get your team back up. You know, bubble, burst them up, heal wall. That's amazing. Or you could do double blind. I think this is really, really strong, because blind plus the vulnerability is super punishing for enemies that overextend. Being able to put them in a double blind state is going to get them killed a lot of the time. And it's also a really powerful ability to combo with, which is something a lot of people don't do. Being able to combo it with something like a Thor ult or a Namer ult or any number of ults is really strong. And I think that's going to be a lot easier to execute now throughout the course of a game, because you get 2 of them potentially every single time in a shared cooldown state. I also think one of the things they've done with these changes is they've raised the skill ceiling of Cloak and Dagger. Really good Cloak and Daggers are going to be able to weave their abilities more strategically to find ways to bail a team out of basically feeding and, you know, enable an aggressive play to basically make a no-win scenario for the enemy. I like these changes. I think they're really more engaging on the character, and they make the character a lot stronger as well. So I highly recommend Cloak and Dagger in Season 6. Now, number 4 is a character on this list, a DPS that is a winner and did not get buffed, but also did not get nerfed, and that's Phoenix. Phoenix was already one of, if not the best all-around DPS overall for Season 5.5. There were other characters that probably could have competed with her for that spot. Hela, for example, Daredevil, but Hela is a character that is still really strong, but definitely fights against the field a bit worse than Phoenix. Even if she is a bit better in the head-to-head matchup, she has, you know, a pretty poor ultimate compared to Phoenix, and she's easier to dive with the buff to some mobility heroes. Phoenix has better counterplay against those. And then Daredevil, the other character that could compete, did get nerfed. Even though it wasn't a massive nerf, it definitely puts him a little bit behind Phoenix. So pound for pound, Phoenix is the best DPS in the game by my metric. Very consistent poke from range, being able to off angle and having that consistent heal, that self-heal that makes it so you can sustain these angles easier, having 2 forms of mobility, a teleport and a flight, and having an ultimate that's really easy to combo with, bails you out of situations, is just overall very hard to interact with, and is good against, you know, very, you know, stuff that can be annoying for other characters to deal with, like penny mines, you know, rocket, ultimate, Groot walls, Loki, beacons, whatever. Phoenix is just the best DPS that you could be playing in most situations, and she doesn't really have any bad matchups. Very, very few, and it depends on the situation, and she definitely can play those matchups in different ways to still play them fine. I think Phoenix is one of those DPS where if you have the mechanical skill to play this character well, you should be playing this character the majority of the time. Very solid all-around threat. And while I do predict a uptick in the bans of Phoenix over the course of the season, there's going to be enough games that you're going to be able to play her that it's going to be worth learning her, putting in the limited time you need to learn her. And then you can always play Hela in the situations that she's banned in, or, you know, there's not one situation where one's better than the other. You could easily swap back and forth between Phoenix and Hela, and almost always one of the two will be open, which means that it's just super hard to ban you out when you develop these mechanical skills for hit scan DPS. And I think that that is something that you should definitely double down on in Season 6. If you really want to climb, these are the characters that have everything you need to climb you in the DPS role. So, I mean, there's not much else to say. Definitely pick them up. Then number 5, our next tank that I'm super excited to put on this list is actually Doctor Strange. He did get a Maelstrom of Madness buff, gonna do a little bit more damage with that conversion rate, but that's not even the thing I care about the most. The flight movement buff is crazy. You can cancel your flight now and just launch yourself straight up into the sky in all kinds of creative movement areas. Like, you can go really far, you can fly over enemies, you can move or directional influence DI yourself while you're in air. And it's going to create so much more situations where you could play make, where you could survive situations you otherwise wouldn't. And I think it's such a really cool creative change to Strange. I think this feels similar to the change they gave to Thor with his dash. Now he can move it, and it gave him so much more creative options. While this is not going to really help Strange as much in the neutral, it is going to help him, I think, pull off ultimates a lot easier, which is one of the things that I've kind of felt lacking on Strange lately. With all the stuff that can cleanse it, like Gambit, you know, utility, or Invis pushing you away, it's really hard to try to find a way to slide it in and make a big ultimate go off. Now that's going to be much more likely. I think Strange has been consistently a reasonable character to play, and I do think that with some of the nerfs to some characters and overall these nice creative buffs to him, it's exactly what he needed to be a bit more viable in the meta, feel better to play in ranked play, and be able to carry in situations he just couldn't carry before. The number 6, our second support on this list, is another one that didn't get directly changed, but he's been an absolute riser going into Season 6 from 5.5, and that's Loki. Loki has been great, and it's for a lot of reasons. Those buffs that we got to Loki really did affect the character, and I think a lot of people didn't really realize how strong this character was until people started to actually pick up the character again after the woman Loki skin came out. But Loki is great, and it's not just because of Gambit. Like, yes, Loki Gambit copying is amazing, and it's still gonna be amazing. Still probably one of the strongest things you could do in the game. But Loki is just generally great. He's hard to deal with. He's hard to dive. He has a lot of damage he can output. He has a lot of playmaking. He plays really well with dive tanks because he can get to an angle and heal them while he's dealing damage to their targets. He has a lot of ways to deny certain ultimates and abilities from going off by using his clones plus totem strategically. I think more than anything, Loki has a ton of agency about your wins and losses in a way that some supports don't feel like it. Loki can heal bot when he needs to, but he has a lot of ways to make offensive plays, really reactive defensive plays, and just a lot of creative ways to absolutely carry a game that just other characters wouldn't have been able to. In a world where some other supports have less survivability, Loki still has great survivable options, from mobility to the ability to go invisible to teleporting and the ability to make himself literally immortal. Loki has a lot going for him, and I think that he's only going to be better going into Season 6. Now that people know about him, though, you probably are going to see a rise of people targeting you, playing some of your counters, and just trying to make you as ineffective as possible. So the better that you get at dealing with these counters, the better you learn your matchups, overall, the better you're going to be on Loki, and you're going to be able to dominate in Season 6. Now, the next DPS we got to talk about in this video is, unfortunately, Bucky. I think we put him on our winners list. I don't know how many seasons at this point, but this character did not get any nerfs at all going into Season 6. And with some characters that are either gonna be really strong still going into Season 6, that are gonna be constantly in your backline, like Angela and Daredevil, and then like new arrivals, characters like Iron Fist, and maybe we'll see an uptick in pick rate in like Cap, potentially. Bucky is a great answer to all those things. He's really good at surviving initial dives. He's really good at peeling for your supports, getting characters off his backline or out of his support's backline, and that's just one of the things he does super, super well. Now, I want to make it clear, Bucky's not great against some of the strongest characters in the game, quote-unquote, characters like Hela, Phoenix, and Hawkeye, but there's a lot of lobbies where these characters are either banned, not particularly great because of the terrain of the map, because there's not a lot of long-distance engagements, and as Bucky, you can kind of close in that gap a little bit, and there's even more situations where there's just not a great player on those characters. So Bucky is a lot easier to get a lot of value from, and Bucky has a really high skill floor, where what that means is he brings a lot of value to the table, even close to his skill floor. You don't need great mechanics, great understanding on the character to do an absolute ton on him, because his base abilities are super easy to hit, his primary is really easy to hit, and his cooldowns are so powerful in the face of characters that want to play into him. And all of that really combines to this character that is going to be even better in low elo than he is at high elo, so he's a great character to climb with, but he still has great game in high elo, and he's looking like he's going to get even better at dealing with the problems that are going to arise in this meta. So while you can't probably play him in every situation, there are so many situations where Bucky is the solution to all your problems, and that just means you probably need to have him in your arsenal. He's just so freaking good overall. I really do think that you probably shouldn't play him in a heavy poke mirror. A lot of the time, if there's nothing you can interact with close range, you're kind of putting a lot of value on the table with Bucky. But in the majority of the games you play, there's gonna be something that is trying to engage with you close. Some tank, some Hulk jumping into you, some Thor jumping into you, some Cap, some diver in your backline. There is going to be something that is trying to enter in your team space in the majority of the games that you play. And in those games, Bucky is absolutely dominant. But in a game where everyone's just like poking long range, you know, Emma, Mag, you know, Jeed, Phoenix, whatever, you could probably whip out a projectile alternative like Namor that also has projectiles. Or maybe you could do something like Phoenix. And that's kind of how you craft your hero pool, like Bucky, Namor, Bucky, Phoenix. Like those really good because they deal with a lot of the problems you could run into no matter what. But anyways, I highly recommend putting Bucky in your hero pool if you haven't learned him. And if you're looking for a DPS to just pick up and learn from a different role, I think Bucky is like top 3 on that list. Wolverine is probably up there as well. Definitely some characters that get a lot of value even at their skill floor, and that's really what you want in a character you're trying to learn as a fill player. The number 8 on the list is another character that didn't get changed, but it's Magneto. He didn't get any nerfs at all, and he was the best in slot before, like the best tank in the game, and he's still the best tank in the game. He just provides everything you could want, from the ability to enable divers, to peel divers off, so he's good with and against divers. He's good at poking out poke characters, but he's good playing alongside them. He has a lot of really powerful tools to deal with a lot of matchups because he can play from range. He has good CC. His ultimate is one of the best ultimates in the game because it's good at countering defensive ults, countering offensive ults. He's just good in like the majority of situations. Now, I will say there is one type of composition that Magneto struggles with, and it's a hard brawl. So this can be done in 2 ways. A hard brawl that plays off of kidnaps like Angela Thor, constantly booping him in, or a hard brawl that plays off of like Groot Wall into Mr. Fent, into maybe Bucky, into maybe the Thing, kind of ignoring his shield and like swarming him and like cutting off his exits. Basically brawl comps that have a way to force the brawl onto the Magneto. And the way that you beat those comps as Mag is you have to play really safe outside of their effective range, but that can be really, really hard when you want to carry the game. You feel like you can't carry, yet you feel like you're playing really passive and you're almost overly relying on your teammates. So it can depend. I'm not saying that Magneto can be played in every situation, but I do think that he's best in the most situations, although these are the specific compositions I think he struggles with the most. And it does show that there is counterplay against Magneto, even if he is the best. And while I do think every tank player should probably have Magneto in their hero pool, it doesn't mean that he's the best in every situation. And you could easily be losing the game on Mag just like you could lose the game on everything else if you don't identify why you're losing it and how you can either adapt your play or adapt your pick. The number 9 on this list is actually, to the surprise of no one, Gambit, a character that did receive many nerfs this patch, but none of them are enough to dramatically push him out of the meta. Gambit is most likely still the most powerful character in the game, and it comes down to a lot of reasons, but the first one is he has so much complex utility that is all great. From burst healing, which is a bit weaker, I will say, but anti is one of the strongest things Gambit can do. The ability to burst people just if he's close range, and just a multitude of options. Mobility, burst, anti, cleansing. There's so much that Gambit gets to do, and while his ultimate is going to be a bit weaker for sustain's sake, the build rate of the ultimate and his ability for his team to close in the gap, an unkiteable ultimate, which means that the opponents can't run away, they have to face it, means that Gambit ult is just gonna be really, really strong. It's gonna build up your entire team's ultimates. It is gonna make them a little bit less survivable, but does that really matter when the entire team is pressing W and they're more lethal? They're still a bit more survivable and they're harder to hit. Gambit ult is still extremely, extremely strong. Still one of the strongest, if not the strongest ultimate in the game. And Gambit individually is still very, very strong. A bit less survivable, bit less healing here and there. So you gotta adapt to that change in the character's kit. But good Gambits are gonna succeed just like they've always had in Season 6. And if you've been holding off on picking up this character because you thought he was gonna get a massive nerf or something like that, it did not come. Pick up this character, grind him, and win some freaking games with him. Now, the last character that we got to talk about in this video is Star-Lord. I think this is a character that has slowly been on the rise, and the nerfs to Sai actually hurt her a lot more than it initially showed, and what we have seen is almost a direct replacement in Psylocke pick rate for Star-Lord pick rate, and he's basically the go-to option now if you want a flexible DPS to play off angles, threaten certain angles, or DPS on those angles. And I do think that Star-Lord is one of the few DPS that has good game against characters like Jean, like Hela. He has the ability to actually win those 1v1s with those characters on off angles. He has a very, very powerful ultimate that can consistently team wipe if enemies are not actually countering it with an ultimate of some sort, and he just applies a lot of pressure, whether he's being played more flexibly in a more traditional dive comp to just kind of clean up targets and follow up on threats, or if he's playing more all in like a diver in a more, a Venom, Mag, Star-Lord composition where he's going in, maybe getting bubbled while he spins around. There's a lot of ways to play Star-Lord in the meta right now, and I think a lot of them are really, really good. Definitely a character worth grinding, playing more in this season, and definitely one that I highly, highly recommend if you're really into tracking, you don't want to play traditional positions, and you want to be generally good against everything. Like most games, you can just skill diff people, or there's a way to adapt your play to win the game as opposed to playing just a better character in that slot. I think Star-Lord is the perfect character for you, and I highly, highly recommend him for Season 6. And all these characters are just really, really good winners for Season 6, so any of them could be great to pick up. But if there's any that you think I missed, let me know in the comments down below. Make sure to smash that like, subscribe, and check out our sponsor link in the description. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.